Hey guys, welcome to the Artist Alley tutorial. I've made this tutorial to help answer some questions you might have when preparing for Artist Alley. Hopefully this video won't be too long. I'm sorry if I talk a bit fast at times. I'm trying to fit this all in one YouTube video, so we better get started. I've been lucky enough to be in several different artist alleys, but still consider this pretty much a beginner's guide. Hopefully I'll be able to answer questions for you, like how to get registered, how to prepare for your artist alley, and what to do on the big day. Now this may sound pretty obvious, but I think the very first thing you have to do is pick which con you want to attend for your very first artist alley. I recommend choosing a local con because, let's face it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to carry all your stuff instead of hopping on a plane and worrying about it tumbling around and damaging and paying for all that baggage. So once you've decided on your local con, you're of course going to have to go visit their website. If they have any social networks like Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr or whatever the next big thing is, I definitely recommend you follow them because it makes it very easy in the future. Plus, depending on the convention, they sometimes will only update those pages and aren't very diligent about their main websites. I've seen it happen so many times before where an artist complains that they missed registration because they had no idea it was going on, but the people on Facebook seemed to know it was coming for at least a week in advance. The next thing you're going to want to do is see if Artist Alley requires that you have a badge first before you register with them. Some conventions will have a badge along with purchasing the table, but this isn't usually the case, so make sure you have your badge ready. Now some people say that they're not sure they even want to go to the convention until they can get their table or not. Here's a little advice to you. When rooms are available, I say book them. You can usually cancel a room later, or at least within maybe a week or so before the convention. The last thing you want to do is get your badge and table and you have no place to stay. Sorry guys, they don't allow you to sleep out in the artist alley. Before registration opens, try to prepare all your information ahead of time. Information may include things like your badge number, links to your work, and the everyday things like your phone number, email address, and address. The reason you want to gather all this ahead of time is mostly for your partner. It might be really hard to contact them on the day of registration for all this detail, so it's better just to get it ready beforehand. Pro tip guys, try not to wait too long to register for your table. In fact, if it's a big convention, you better be there when the floodgates open, because larger conventions tend to sell out within minutes. It's kind of scary crazy. Never underestimate the power of artists. I've seen several different ways that conventions do Artist Alley registration. The main way is first come, first serve. This is why being there when registration opens is so vitally important. The next one is pretty unpopular, so it doesn't happen very much, but it's known as lottery. And yes, it's as bad as it sounds. You sign up, and then in a month, you might be drawn for a table, or you might not. You might also notice that sometimes conventions will sell you not just a full table, but a half a table. So if you're just starting out and you don't feel you're going to have enough material, a half table might be better for you. So you've picked your convention, gotten ready for registration, and somehow made it through alive. Congratulations! You now have your very first Artist Alley table. However, I believe there's still some very important things to do before you start worrying about what you're going to be selling at your table. Maybe I'm just a big worrywart, but I think it's best to look over the rules and policies of the Artist Alley. So what are some of these rules and conditions? Well, they vary from convention to convention, but here's some things that might come up, so keep an eye out for them. Some cons do what's known as the 50-50 ratio. This means that out of your material, at least 50% of it can only be fan art, and the other 50% must be original art. This doesn't mean you have to have fan art, it just means that if you decide to put some in, it can't exceed 50% of all your work. Another thing if you're planning for it is to look out in the rules about adult material. Some conventions straight out don't allow it, others say you have to keep it away until someone can prove that they're 18 or older with ID. There are even little things you must be aware of in the rules like placement. Some rules say things like you can't cover the number that's in front of the table. Others say that you can only place things on top of the table and absolutely nothing on the floor as a stand-up. There could even be minor little details like you're not allowed to put anything on a wall that's behind you. Reading the rules and policies can also help answer any questions you might have, such as will there be power outlets or not. It'll also explain if there's any additional papers you'll need to bring along with you. The one thing that you should definitely expect to see in the rules is something about a permit. Sometimes this only needs to be a temporary permit, but most cities and states require that you have this in order to sell anything. So if you find yourself in need of a permit, don't wait till the last minute to get it. Depending on where you are, it can sometimes be time consuming. Your city or state usually has a government website that'll give you all the juicy details and how to apply. Last but not least, I would print out copies of everything. Print out a copy of the rules for yourself, and when you finally get your permit, definitely make copies of that. In fact, it might even say in the rules that you'll need to be giving a staff member a copy. So now that I've gone through the whole boring process of registration and reading all your rules and looking at all the fine print and yada yada yada, I can finally get to what I know you really care about. What do you plan to sell at your table, and a few tips and tricks on how to get ready for it. So funny enough, a lot of the questions I see for Artist Alley is what should I sell at my table? The great thing is Artist Alley has a variety of stuff. You should sell what you're really passionate about. Some of the things I've seen sold at a convention are prints, buttons, stickers, keychains, books, plushies, jewelry, hats, clothes, commissions, the list just goes on and on. Now most of the things I talk about are going to be for artists since I don't do things like plushes or accessories. But you can easily apply most of this stuff to anything you do. The most important thing is not waiting till the last moment. Procrastination is going to be your worst nightmare. I know it's pretty bad from an artist standpoint. I can't even imagine how much stress goes into making all the plushies and clothings in time for your convention. So if at all possible, try to start preparing about 5 or 6 months in advance. So first, let's talk about the big seller at Artist Alleys. The prints. Prints can be anything like a small size of a postcard or a normal print that's 8.5 by 11. There's even often large prints that are like posters. There are different types to choose from. Normally I see a lot of glossy, but there's also cardstock and matte, and these will not be as shiny as the gloss. Just be aware that depending on the material, the cost might go up. If you're doing prints yourself, make sure you practice printing it out on one sheet of paper instead of doing a whole batch, because you might end up wasting a lot of your material. If you're getting them done professionally, make sure you have enough time from the con to send and receive your prints. As far as how many prints, this is a bit tricky. It's best to go with your gut. For me, personally, I do about 5 to 7 if I'm not sure, and about 7 to 10 of the ones I think are going to sell better. If you're doing a lot of little ones, you could probably stock up with about 7, since they won't cost you too much. As far as a limit, I probably wouldn't go over 25 at most for a single print. A personal favorite of mine is buttons or pins. Congoers just can't seem to get enough of these. Now there are usually 2 ways of going about this. You can either go ahead and buy them in bulk from a website, or you can dish out the money for a button maker and make them yourself. Another great little item that should be fairly inexpensive and people just love is stickers. The great thing about making stickers is it's really easy. You can usually go to an office supplies store or a craft store and buy these sheets of paper that you put through your printer, and then once they're through, you just cut them out into the shape that you need. There's also the option of going to a third party as well, but usually the shape of the sticker is predetermined, so you'll either only be able to do ovals or rectangles or something. The next thing I'm going to cover is commissions at a convention. Now, normally I don't do this, but I've talked to a lot of friends that have, so here are some tips I've heard for them. If you're doing commissions, be prepared to give up a lot of your con time. It's not fair to your customers if you rush it on the last day just to get it to them on time. I think you should give every commission the same love you normally would for your own artwork. The great thing about today is almost everyone has either a smartphone or a laptop, but if you don't have one of these, make sure you ask your customer for a reference picture. Get all the information you can from them: name, phone number, email address, a possible time they can come to pick it up, their character names, any sort of poses they might want, even the outfits they want their character to wear. Make sure you get all the details you can so you don't forget it later. In other words, write it down. Normally, I would think to ask for payment up front, but I've known some friends to ask for only half, and then when they deliver the picture to the congoer, they ask for the other half. Some tables set up commissions to be completed after the con, either digitally or sent to them by mail. So if you decide to do commissions, definitely make sure you have a sign out to say this. There are some congoers that specifically go to an artist alley just to find a commissioner. As far as any other materials you plan to sell at your table, they pretty much follow these same rules. The next biggest question I always get about Artist Alley is what kind of art should I actually sell? What fandoms are big? What series should I do and what series should I avoid? If I haven't said it already, you should really do what you're passionate about. I'm not going to start going into the long debate about OC versus fan art. I think you should do what you want to do. If you end up going with fan art but you're not sure what kind of series to cover, Usually you should go with what you like. Chances are other people will like the same kind of series or characters. Trust me, there are many different types of fandoms, such as oldies, mainstreams, and the new shows, which can make your art even a little bit rare. Variety is the spice of life. My table generally has a mix of everything. Even if it's an anime convention, don't be afraid to throw in some video games, Western comics, and American cartoons. There is a fandom for everything, and you'll probably get buyers for this, so don't feel embarrassed and show off what you love. The next tricky subject we need to talk about is prices. This is often the hardest thing for me to think of sometimes. In all honesty, I've only learned this from my own shopping experience and having a table a few times. The main thing you need to think about is the cost of your materials. Also count in the time you spent on each piece. Remember, these are unique pieces of art for you to sell. I've seen prints ranging anywhere from $3 to $10. Normally, I sell my prints at about $5, unless they're smaller or larger, of course. If you're really unsure, you can set a price as an experiment, and then on the last day lower it a little, see what people go for. Con-goers love deals. I often have a deal going on that if you buy 2 or more of the same item, you'll get another one at a discount or even free. An example of this would be my buttons, which are normally $2, but I'll sell you a deal for 3 for $5. Some people might try to haggle you. This is a mixed subject for me. If it's the last day of the con and I only have so many materials left, I might do this for them. I do, however, find it a little bit rude when people try to haggle me while other customers are around, because then generally everyone starts wanting this special price. Don't feel pressured to give in to the hagglers. It's your work, so do what you think is best. So now it's time for the big day, convention. You've gotten your badge, you found out where you're seated, and you're walking to your table for the very first time. I think there's some really good tips on how you want to set up your table. It normally takes about an hour to set up, so I actually recommend doing a practice run at home. This will also give you a better idea on what looks good and what doesn't. Be sure to find out if your con is providing you with a tablecloth. Believe it or not, there are some cons that don't. Even so, you might want to add a little flair to your table, so you could go buy some fabric of your own. Remember when I mentioned reading the rules about table displays? Here's where it matters. Some cons might not allow you to stand things on the floor. PVC pipes are great for putting things up higher and displaying things like prints. Try to know your measurements because your local hardware store can cut them for you, and cutting them on your own is a real pain. There are also these great little things called wire boxes. They literally are what they sound like. Great for displaying things at eye level and for storing things. You can even turn them around to make little cubbies for things like your plushies. Get a binder ready to show your artwork. I don't recommend only going with a binder because oftentimes only one person can look through it at a time, but it's good to have a binder nearby for all the artwork that you couldn't fit up on your stands. If you're going to give out plastic bags, make sure it's allowed. I live in San Jose and I can tell you that from now on it's not. There's also a great idea for getting envelopes for people that are buying small pieces so they can carry them without worrying about losing them. I've seen some tables offer protection sleeves for prints and posters. Also, make sure you have a pen. People love to have their artists sign their works, and it's probably the most flattering thing about the entire job. I'm a big believer in business cards. People love to grab them, and it's a great way to let people know about your websites, Tumblrs, and DeviantArts. It can also get you a bit of business in the future. Try not to clutter your table too much. You're going to need the space to work. I've covered what I think is the most important stuff, but I still have a long list of tips I'd like to share with you. One big thing is to bring a change box. This will keep your money safe. Also, make sure it's actually full of change. A lot of people start off at a convention with just a bunch of 20s, so make sure you have a lot of 1s and 5s at your disposal. Bring a water bottle to your table. Bring snacks for yourself. Bring a sketchbook. Sometimes people like to just watch their artist draw. Bring tape. Lots of tape. Tape is your best friend. You never know when you're going to need that tape. Try to keep track of what's selling. If you plan to continue Artist Alley, this will help you in seeing what sells and what doesn't. Plus, it's kind of fun to see what's trendy. Don't copy poses or trace. This should be a given. Fans will know and really frown upon this. It might even get you kicked out of Artist Alley, so don't think you're fooling anyone. Get to know your neighbors. They tend to be really awesome people, and I've always thought cons are for meeting new friends anyways. Plus, you might have to run to the bathroom at some point, so it would be nice to feel that your stuff is safe next to someone else you've been getting to know. Speaking on safety, You'll need to think about what you want to leave at your table when the day is done. I don't recommend taking down everything, as it's a pain the next day. I generally leave at my display, but take all my supplies home. Try not to be too pushy, but if you get the opportunity to start a conversation, I would definitely go for it. People like talking to their artists. Get lots of sleep. You won't seem very appealing if you're tired and grumpy the day of the convention. Remember, staff is there to help. Ask questions and try not to give them a hard time. They're just doing their job. Remember to smile. It's your best feature. Have fun. This is only your first con, so you're just getting your feet wet. I promise that every time you go hereafter, it's going to get better and you're going to learn even more. So try not to get discouraged.